As mentioned, my lecture is about pedagogy, and specifically we are trying to understand the differences and the similarities between traditional and digital pedagogy. But definitely, it is important, as mentioned also before, to bring everyone on the same list, that we briefly recall what pedagogy is about. And you see, this slide gives us a brief idea, so it's a kind of a reminder. So pedagogy, as you can read, typically covers everything from the theory, the practice of teaching and learning. It incorporates all the teaching methodologies, processes we as lecturers, we as instructor employ in order to facilitate the students' learning. And then, as we have discussed as well, you know, there are also different types of students, and they differently have different needs and also expectations. Pedagogy, as you also see, needs then this kind of pair. So there should be an educator, there should be learners or learners, singular or plural, and there should also be a subject matter. Let's say strategic management. And definitely, if we are moving from the subject matter of strategic management, let's say, to project management, then we would also expect that the pedagogical approach would change in terms of how these different subjects, or how the subject is going to be addressed and delivered in the best possible way. Nowadays, you know, we as lecturers, we as instructors, we have a new set of methodologies and also processes available, which are in order to support our teaching activities and also to support the way in which we are preparing, delivering, and then also post-processing our all our activities. And not a big surprise, we are going to start with some traditional pedagogy. Here you see this pyramid briefly summarizes, let's say, the four main features of traditional pedagogy. So you see the underlying notion of traditional pedagogy is that it is taking place in a teacher-centered environment. What does it mean? We as an introduction, we as a lecturer are the authority, and as an authority, it sounds very powerful, and indeed this person is very powerful because this person can control the learning environment. It can determine the course curriculum and also design upon the teaching methodology to be used. You also see that we, to further underline the power we do have as an instructor, we are also usually the primary source of knowledge. If we are moving to the next core feature, you see it's this knowledge is typically presented in a lecture style delivery, more or less like what you are now exposed to. I'm sending something, I'm sending information and knowledge, and then typically, you know this too, maybe from your time as a student, but maybe also from your own time as a lecturer, then typically this knowledge exposition is followed by exercises and assignments. The idea behind this knowledge dissemination or this knowledge transfer is that knowledge is something objective. So we can actually say that knowledge is in such a kind of environment or in such a way of thinking is considered as a commodity, and this commodity can be sent, it can be shared with other people. And what is this knowledge we are typically sharing as a lecture, as an instructor? We are sharing concepts as well as theories and all the relevant aspects we as an instructor think a student should be aware of in order to understand, in order to develop a first an initial understanding of a specific subject or a deepened understanding of the subject. And learning takes place through constant repetitions and positive reinforcements. Then, as we also see, the teaching takes place in a physical classroom setting. So this means that a teacher and students need to be present at a predetermined time and also in a predetermined location, and also in a predetermined more or less after following a predetermined schedule. And you see, in terms of where is this knowledge coming from, we see in this classical understanding, classical traditional pedagogy, that there is a strong focus on textbooks. Of course, depending on the type of students we are addressing, there might be additional reading, but the textbook can be considered as a primary source of information or explicit knowledge. If we are then turning to digital pedagogy, here you see we are more or less following the same logic. Here too, we are presenting the key characteristics. What is now the main difference, or one of the driving differences that actually then creates new opportunities, different opportunities, is that digital pedagogy takes advantage of technology for educational purposes. This is very important. So it's not about technology per se, but dedicated technology. And this technology is used in teaching, learning, the assessment, but definitely also for educational management. So all the key actors, let's say the key actors are still the students and the instructors. They use these technologies in order to support their activities at hand. As a consequence, the use of this technology, we have discussed this already, provides this kind of flexibility. And this flexibility, of course, is not only dedicated to the students so that they can study anytime, as you can read here, of course, provided that there is a robust and a stable internet connection. This refers to us as a lecturer, as an instructor as well. Now, instead of a teacher-centered approach, we have a student-centered approach. That means that in the underlying notion of digital pedagogy is that we think of an active learner as an active participant who is now responsible of their, or is in charge or control of their own learning journey. And in order to facilitate this learning journey, additional several diverse multiple resources are made available. You see some of them, and I'm pretty sure that you have also used some of them in the videos to be shown today, and also in the presentations today and also tomorrow. And as a consequence, we are closer with this approach, we are closer to this idea of offering a tailor-made and a personalized approach to learning, or to a personalized learning experience. In contrast to traditional pedagogy, this digital pedagogy is based on something that is called andragogy. So andragogy actually puts an adult learner at the core, and now this andragogy, in contrast to pedagogy, which is actually addressing children, this adult learner is, at least in theory, driven by intrinsic motivation, and we are also, in this context, we are talking about self-directed individuals or self-directed learners. From there, we are in the position to highlight, to summarize the pros and cons of both modalities. You see, we are starting with traditional pedagogy. On the left-hand side, you see the typical pros that are associated with a traditional modality. There is this direct interaction, and so I'm delivering something, I'm sending you something, and in case something is unclear, you could immediately raise your hand and ask for clarification. And of course, it's also easier for an instructor to read the faces in order to understand or coming closer to an understanding whether or not the person is not only following you, but also trying to understand. And if not, I can deliver more, I can add additional information. We can also definitely say that a clear pro is this clear framework. This gives, think about control. I mentioned this before, that it's about a controlled environment, and this environment provides kind of safety also, because not everyone can actually handle this kind of flexibility. There is, as mentioned already, this immediate and then definitely also timely feedback. And then also something we shouldn't underestimate is that when you are sitting together in a physical classroom, the likelihood increases that you can develop a social capital that is needed in order to address different types of challenges. And definitely what you are doing in a physical classroom environment at a higher education has started hopefully already before, and we need this kind of social capital in order to address all the present and upcoming societal challenges. So, and in sum, if we are developing this idea further, there could also be a sense of community as the outcome of this kind of close social interactions, not only with the instructor, but also with my neighbors, but definitely also with the other participants being present in the physical classroom. Then we can turn to the cons. Yeah, less flexible. It's clear if something is very framed, then definitely it shows its limitations if we are trying to do something extra, something different. This teacher-centered style, and definitely also the way the teacher is approaching the classes and the way this person is using for communicating knowledge can also limit critical thinking. And as mentioned before, it's traditional pedagogy is very much about memorizing and repetition. So think about the typical assignments like please list the 10 main functions of, let's say, digital marketing. This has nothing to do with understanding, but simply with repeating these 10 functions. And I guess you all have met persons who are simply great in terms of memorizing things, but when you were asking, say, okay, and what does it mean? Then this understanding was not developed or was underdeveloped. So critical thinking might be limited. I have already addressed this teacher-centric approach and the possible disadvantages. We can say, must think about the situation that if you're having this kind of frontal type of teaching, that it might be a challenge to please different learning styles. Some people are good in at listening. Some people are good at writing stuff down. So this is definitely a challenge. And when we are talking about cost, and here this is very important, I'm not talking about the cost of the human capital, so that actually the teachers are too expensive, but here I'm definitely not. I'm talking about the infrastructure, definitely keeping alive this kind of physical classroom environment with all the technology we would expect with to be able to deliver contemporary education. This is costly. Good. From there, we can actually turn to digital pedagogy. As before, we are starting with the pros, increased accessibility. So now it's also easier for students to join us. If you are, let's say, located in rural areas, it is also easier for students with a disability. Here we can definitely say that COVID and everything that took place as a consequence of this pandemic has shown what is possible through the use of online teaching, and specifically through the use of the technology available. As a consequence, it is also more cost effectiveness. So these classrooms are no longer available, but then definitely the question is open, what is happening with these classrooms? But this goes beyond these lectures. We, as an instructor, we can definitely include more resources, different types of resources, thanks to the platforms we are using, Moodle, Canvas, Blackboard. You know, they are offering a huge number of opportunities to include resources or to provide access to resources. This definitely comes closer to this idea that learners have different preferences regarding learning styles, and we should try to take this into consideration. And what is also definitely, at least from my point of view, because I'm typically having international classes, it is very interesting to get in touch, and not only very interested, it's also kind of easy to get in touch not only with guest lectures, international guest lectures that are located somewhere in the world, but it's also easier to actually bring my students together with students group in other parts of the world. So, for example, recently I did this. I brought my Icelandic students together with students in Hong Kong and had them discuss sustainability challenges, and it was kind of interesting to learn how the Icelandic students were discussing this aspect, taking into consideration their specific context, and then how the Hong Kong students address this. So global collaboration is made easier, and hopefully we see this kind of collaboration more and more. Definitely, there are also cons. The digital divide maybe broadens, it strengthens. Definitely, as we have said before, there is this kind of increased accessibility, but we have also seen that more and more tools are available. Think about AI tools, not only for teaching, but also for research. And we also know that the better solutions are typically the paid, or usually the paid solutions, but we also know that not everyone can afford this kind of a paid solution, which widens a digital divide. We also know, and this is not a big surprise, that starting and also maintaining interactions in an online environment is very challenges, and this is not only limited to student groups. This is also a challenge when we are meeting our colleagues wherever they are. There is an engagement challenge, as with all classes. Maybe in the beginning the engagement level is kind of high, but then the longer the class, the session takes, the more likely that this engagement level is going down. Assessment complexity could be an issue. Then you have to think about alternatives. Usually cheating is one aspect that is used or mentioned in this area. And then definitely also a technical issue. Here, we are not maybe talking about digital literacy, but we may also talk about connection issues in general. Good. From there, we can actually then try to bring together or remind ourselves of the similarities between these two approaches to pedagogy, because we should always remind ourselves that both traditional as well as digital pedagogy is based on certain fundamental principles which are presented here. There is, even though, as we have heard, traditional pedagogy started with this kind of frontal teaching. This has changed over the years. So when we are thinking of both modalities, there is this interest, this focus on a student-centered learning. So both modalities tries to put the needs and the interests of the respective students at the core, and try to think about what are the best ways to help this person learn and also to reach not only the objective of the respective course, but of the entire program. It is both modalities try to find ways to engage students, engage them actively, also the more silent ones. It's about providing timely and constructive feedback, and both. This is, as you remember, the instruction you got for preparing your videos and your presentations. Both approaches have a clear focus on specifying the learning objectives, and then also make sure that suitable measures are available to make sure that these learning objectives were also met. So in sum, we can say that both approaches share crucial principles, and both try to create meaningful learning experience for different types of students. So what does it mean? So I have already reached more or less my concluding slides. The main message behind this introductory lecture of today is that we should be ready for thinking of a hybrid future, even though, you know, the focus is on developing digital education skills, and also it's about developing a better understanding of digital pedagogy. I guess you all know the best way seems to be when we are trying to acknowledge the strengths of both skills, definitely by not underestimating its weaknesses, and try to combine them in a strategic way, in a best possible way, to come closer to a balanced and informed pedagogical approach. Here you see we should always remind ourselves of the traditional strengths which are coming from traditional pedagogy, being direct interaction, providing fast, immediate and constructive feedback, and have these sense of community in your mind. Then combine this kind of strengths with what the use of technology, educational technology, can bring to the floor, to the table, like accessibility, flexibility, and also the incorporation of diverse resources. Because definitely we see it is important that we are exposing our students from a very early stage on, and then typically my way of thinking is already from the kindergarten. They need to be exposed to different ways of thinking. They need to be exposed to different world views, so that we are avoiding the situation that the persons can only think in silos. And I'm typically supervising and teaching at the doctoral level, and I can tell you that it is very, very challenging to bring persons who are now at the doctoral level to open their minds, their eyes for different worldviews, because they haven't learned it, they haven't trained it, and this is this is something both modalities should work with. And having access to diverse resources is definitely relevant, but this also means we need a very specific generation of teachers as well. So, and some, if we are trying to combine these things, then we are coming closer to learning experiences and maybe also teaching experience, because for me it's always a couple. So it's not only the student, I also need to include the teacher, because it's about learning. For me, it's a relational approach, and so it's very important that we enhance the learning and the teaching experience of all relevant partners involved. That's it from my side. Thank you very much.